Hi, SoulCal here, and this is our first Edge live on our Facebook page. So, pre-club Edge is no longer, and we're on to the new show, Edge Live. So, today's guest is a gentleman I know very well from our Teen Park days. That was when we first met. But he's a comedian. He's got over 30,000 followers already. He's young age on Facebook. And his latest podcast is called Stop the World. It gives me great pleasure to introduce my good friend, Aaron McCann.
How's it
Aaron,
going?
how's it going?
You keeping well? How's it going?
I'm good, man. I'm good considering the current climate. We're all surviving. How are you?
Yeah, same as you, man. Just plodding along and trying to keep busy, bluffing.
So you're obviously you've got the latest podcast, Stop the World. So I take it that's something to do with obviously the current climate we're in with the pandemic. Literally, the world has stopped. Yeah. Obviously, it'll be your kind of humorous take on it.
It's essentially like it started off really weird because it's I know it's not the original song, but there's an Irish country singer called Declan Nerney, and he has a song called Stop the World. And like where I'm from, which is just like the middle of Tyrone, that's, people would play that song. And like, I always just found it like a really funny song. So I just ended up calling the podcast it because I was like, there's not a more perfect song for the current time.
Mm-hmm. And how many episodes are on there already? And kind of what kind of stuff can people, listen to when they dip in there?
We're going into the double digits next week. Next week's the 10th episode. So it's still a very young, new podcast. And every week I do a thing called Voice Note Confessionals, which is where I give a topic and then people send me in their stories regarding that topic. And there's been some absolute belters of stories from people. It's just amazing to hear everyone's like stories, embarrassing stories and stuff like that. And
what's been your favourite story so far that somebody's messaged in?
Oh, wow. I don't know if it would be suitable for this. But it involved a few horse tranquilizers would be the nice way of saying it.
Right. Right, okay. No, but it's is it just do you have guests on, or is it just one you do yourself?
I've had guests on, yeah. I started reaching out during quarantine. I promised myself I'd do a thing where every Friday I would essentially send a DM on Instagram to anybody that I'd like to interview. And it's just this thing where we say, why not? And every Friday I just send one DM to someone and go, listen, I know that I have no business being in your DMs, but if you'd like to come on my podcast, I'd really appreciate it. And so far I've had 3 people that have responded because of that. Now there's hundreds and hundreds of unreads and stuff, but you put yourself out there, sometimes it comes back to you. So
I know, I totally get you, and I know that feeling. It's you reach out, but sometimes they pretty much ding you. I suppose that's just part and parcel of the game, isn't it? But it's part of the game. So the 3 people, is it anyone we would know? Is it anyone kind of famous, or is it
professional wrestler Rob Van Dam came on?
Oh wow!
And I just had Ron Funches, who's actually coming out tonight. His episode will be out tonight. He's a comedian in LA that has a Comedy Central special, and actually famously had Ric Flair introduce him on the special. And he's been in the movie Trolls, exactly. And he's been in the movie Trolls as well. So he's, a megastar, like chatting to me from my, parents' house.
What was I've not had a chance to actually watch the Rob Van Dam interview, and not that I'm really into wrestling these days. I kind of the most I kind of get involved with wrestling is playing the Wii Man, on the Xbox, which he usually beats me, which is quite worrying when he's only 4. But no, Rob Van Dam, what was that like chatting to him? Because I'd be right in saying you actually met him when you were younger.
Yeah, it was very surreal because that would have been like, I wasn't like crazy into like superhero films growing up or Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. I was just always a huge wrestling fan when I was younger. So Rob Van Dam would have been my favorite wrestler. And I remember I met him in Belfast at a show afterwards, and he was just so nice, so dead on, and kind of just kept in touch mildly. And yeah, he was sound guy. And then I asked him to come on this, and he was the first to respond. And we did an interview, and he was very honest and open about everything.
So what kind of stuff did you discuss now? I take it that's not his real name. I take it he gets the name. I'd imagine his name is Robert, but the Van Damme comes for the fact it actually looks a wee bit like, Van Damme, the actual actor we're talking about,
I do know his second name, but I wouldn't even attempt to pronounce it because I'd totally butcher it. But yeah, he's that's a bit of a stage name, yeah.
A bit of a stage name, aye. So obviously you've done some gigs over in Scotland. I've seen you, I think, 3 times over here. The first time was at Blackfriars, where you were supporting Colin Geddes, who's doing really well just now, particularly over in Belfast, and selling out the SSE Arena. And before that, and you've obviously done the Edinburgh Fringe a couple of times as well. What do you think? How is it? How do you compare, like, say, the likes of Glasgow, Edinburgh, compared to back home? In terms of the comedy scene.
Honestly, from what it seems like, from what I've experienced, it seems to be very similar, both in terms of the standard of comedians that are out there, but then also the standard of the audiences. Like Glasgow, if you put a blindfold on yourself and performed in Belfast, you like, it could be the exact same as Glasgow. They're two very similar cities in terms of the banter's the same, kind of same carry on and slagging and stuff like that. So very, very similar, actually. I love performing in Glasgow and Edinburgh.
And you've performed also in America, which is quite a good feat for they succeeded in. So tell the viewers what that was like when you kind of stayed over there in LA was it over a year you stayed over there?
Just under a year, like say a couple of weeks short of a year. But yeah, it was amazing, man. It really was a life-changing kind of trip, and it really kind of, to be out there where it's like, top, very, very top tier, and coming over someone still kind of in their 20s, just like doing stand-up in Northern Ireland, just kind of going with the flow. I think it got me a lot more serious about things and showed what you can do. Like, because you go to see the guys and they're like, the likes of Joe Rogan and like Brian Callen and guys like that are just like so good. Bill Burr, all these great comedians. And you go over there and you get to see that they're working out material as well. You get to see the Netflix specials when it's all like finished and polished and stuff. But those guys are out in the clubs every night just working out new stuff.
I take it you learned a lot from that then, seeing that firsthand.
100%, because it kind of like humanized everything. Because for someone who is from where I'm from, when you see the likes of like Joe Rogan and stuff like that on your laptop or your phone, it just seems like a completely different world. But a 12-hour plane ride and you're there in the epicenter of it, so it just kind of humanized everything and made it like, these guys are made of the same thing that we're all made of. It's just a combination of work ethic, talent, and a little bit of luck too, I guess.
And tell the viewers, I was guessing this earlier on, but you shared a house with about 30 odd folk. Was that right, or was it more than that?
40 people, yeah.
It was 40?
Yeah.
I knew it was double digits anyway, but no, that's 40 people. That must have been a nightmare.
It was crazy, but you look back on it, like I at the time, you're so grand at it. But then you look back and you're like, yeah, it probably isn't normal to like have 40 people share 2 toilets. Do you know what I mean? Like that's like I'm like, I lived like that for a year. Like that was my life.
Did you have a cleaner, or did you have to take turns?
We did, yeah.
We
did. We had a cleaner, and God love her, Maria, saint of a woman.
And there was, I take it, there have been a lot of different people for different backgrounds. You're obviously going over there as a comedian. So what kind of other folk did you meet along the way?
Like literally every kind of person you can think of. There was actors, there was musicians, there was people that were designing virtual reality video games. There was, the only type of person that didn't come into the house that I was waiting for was a magician. But we had no magicians in the year, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, but you got a taste of what America's like, and that, as you say, is the epicenter. Would you say? Did you get a feeling of the American dream? Is that still a thing?
And that you'd have to be asleep to actually.
No.
Yeah, it is definitely a real thing in terms of like people are kind of working on striving every day, and people are very on it over there. Like they know where they want to go, and they're working every day to get to it. But California is a wee bit different in terms of the fact that it is very laid back. And that's probably a combination of the very nice weather and of course marijuana probably plays a factor in that as well.
Aye, well, it's I've just got a question come up there from it's actually my nephew.
Okay.
Andy Laurie. I don't know, I think that's maybe a typo. How did you feel when the great comedian blah, blah, endorsed you to his fan base? Great recognition.
Oh yeah, Ahmed Jalili.
Oh, is that a real name?
Yeah.
I thought it was a typo. Was that?
Yeah, Ahmed. So basically, how that kind of came about was when I came home from America. Basically, in short, what happened to me was I got fired from my job. I got broke up with my girlfriend at the time, got deported, and was just like, right, either I keep myself busy or I'm gonna go insane here. So I just put out like a video. Joe Rogan was on his podcast and he was talking about people from Belfast, but he pronounced it as like Belfast. So I was like, nobody's said anything about this yet, but it's like everyone's talking about it, but nobody's like made like a reaction, like a video reaction. So I rang my friend up and we went to like just under this bridge in my town, and we shot the video on a phone, went back to his office, edited the whole thing, put it out, and then you're just sitting there watching it, and the video is like getting shared and shared and shared, and like Coach Kavanagh's talking about it, Joe Rogan's retweeted it and followed me. It was insane. But among the people that saw it and talked about it was Ahmed. So he then came to see my Edinburgh Fringe show and has been a massive help, like unbelievable, because now when this is all over, when this lockdown and stuff is properly lifted, I do plan to move to London. And
really?
That's basically been because of him, because he took me in for a week and got me in at like the really good comedy clubs out there, and got like basically gave me a chance to perform in front of people that could get me bookings out there. And I'm just eternally grateful to him for that. And I'm looking forward now to the next thing.
That's amazing. So you've done LA and it's looking like you're going to be doing London next. So it doesn't get much bigger than that.
I mean, yeah, I just love poverty. I just love living in poverty. It's class. Like, I just love eating super noodles every night.
Yeah, no, I like super noodles. The curry ones are quite good. They're quite tasty.
I'm more of a chicken guy myself, but I respect that choice.
Sometimes if I'm feeling really hungry, I'll mix two different flavours together. So you could do a chicken curry. Yeah.
I've literally never heard anyone do that, but I love that.
And chop some spring onions in as well.
Oh, you're really going all.
This is the Filipino in me. This is my mum used to make stuff like that, and then see put an egg in as well and whisk it in. It kind of thickens it. It's a bit like chicken noodle soup.
This is the poshest super noodle thing I've ever heard.
Listen, that's just taking super noodles to the next level for you. So I would definitely recommend it and give it a go. But thanks for your question, Andy boy. As I say, post your questions for Aaron if you're interested in anything at all, what he's up to. Just post in the comments and I'll be happy to ask them. So, obviously, you've got the Stop the World podcast out there now. You've had two previous ones. Your first one was Dirt Civil.
Yes.
And following up from that was another Love Island, which I presume was about Love Island.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so Dirt Civil, what's your kind of the theme or topic of conversations for that podcast?
Dirt Civil was just it was me jumping into podcasting essentially with my friend Tim Gallagher. I didn't want to do a podcast by myself, and me and Tim have been friends since way early in secondary school, and kind of just have like a bit of rapport going. So I was like, well, if I'm going to do it with anybody, I'd like to do it with someone that I can bounce off, and we can have a bit of crack and conversation and not take ourselves too seriously. And he was the person for that.
Mm-hmm. And obviously the second podcast, another Love Island. What made you decide to do a podcast about Love Island of all shows?
I think because me and Tim were both kind of like secret Love Island fans, and like when you come out to your friend as a Love Island fan, it's always like a bit of a tense moment. And then he told me too. He's like, "Yeah, I watch it every night," and I was like, "Well, why don't we make a Love Island podcast, but it's not, we just like slate them all, like why not?" So that's exactly what we did.
You would go on, you know my Mrs. Lorna, so you would get on really well with her because she loves all that as well. She's actually currently watching, is it Below Deck? She's catching up with all that.
Haven't heard of that one now.
Oh, it's like a floating hotel, isn't it? A big fancy yacht, all these folk with money. Sailing it for a week on holiday or whatever. But that's what she's watching, and it's painstaking for me, obviously, because I need to sit there and watch it with her.
But do you ever secretly get into it?
What's that?
Do you ever secretly get into it? Like you'll pretend you don't like it, and then you're asking her what's happening?
Oh, all the time. No, you're like, I'm not watching that. I'm going to go on the laptop. I'm going to do this and that. But because it's on in the background, you end up.
Yeah, you get emotionally invested. Yeah.
No, that's it. To be fair, she got me into all this kind of a reality nonsense. It kind of started with I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
Uh-huh.
Again, just one of the, she'd watch it and then you'd end up watching it, and as you say, you invest your time in it. Or between that and just not having a choice, really. But you can tell who wears the trousers in my house, eh? But no, that was it was obviously kind of more serious. No, obviously it was tragic what happened to Love Island presenter Caroline Flack. It was. I know it's a bit doom and gloom, but it was tragic what happened to her.
It was kind of eye-opening too about like social media. I think it kind of started a good conversation about how people on there can just kind of non-stop like throw stones at people and stuff like that. And I think it was very sad what happened. But I guess one good thing that come out of that terrible event is that I think people started taking on the Be Kind hashtag and stuff like that there. So it like it doesn't fix it, but at least it helps. It starts the dialogue of it.
Mm-hmm. Andy's come back in with another question, so Andy, just keep asking if you're what. He says he was in Belfast before the lockdown, and Kevin Bridges is a massive draw over there. What would you say is the reason for that? Why do the folk in Northern Ireland love him so much over there?
I think it's the same as we were saying before, and like the humour is so similar between especially Glasgow and Belfast. I think those two cities alone are just so everything about them. So I would say, yeah, Kevin Bridges playing Belfast would be the next best thing to Glasgow for him, I'd assume.
And apart from Kevin Bridges, what other Scottish comedians do you look up to or admire?
Scottish comedians, obviously, you got the GOAT Billy Connolly. You got Frankie Boyle as well. Tons of great Scottish comics. Those just off the top of my head, but yeah, Scotland, even like right now, like current scene has so many great comics coming out.
The two you mentioned there, the Billy Connolly's kind of, when it comes to comedians, he's kind of like my idol. But no, Frankie Boyle's awesome as well.
Yeah,
watch many a DVD of his. But no, see when you were obviously in LA, you briefly saw or met Dave Chappelle. What was that moment like for you? And did you get any chat with him before he drove off?
Very surreal. Essentially, how it happened was when I was in LA for the full year, I was trying to go to see him because he would drop into the Comedy Store, comedy club, just randomly, like it would be 2 o'clock in the morning, and he would call in and do like 2 hours just by like, and they would just be like, well, it's Dave, like, so they just let him work away. And I always wanted to catch him one of those nights, and just could never be there at the right time, right place. And eventually then, when I went over to visit there on my last holiday, they announced on their website that they were doing like a special surprise headliner at the Comedy Store. And they gave no hints as to who it was, but the tickets were $200. So I was like, well, if it's not Dave Chappelle, it's bound to be someone very special. So I just went ahead and bought tickets, and me and my friend went and sat down. It was in the smallest room in the Comedy Store, the belly room, which is about 80 people, I think, capacity. And there was like 6 people did support for him before he came on. And then at the very end, I said to my friend as well, I nudged my friend and was like, if it's Chappelle, I'll buy a bottle of champagne just for the crack, like for the both of us. And sure enough, it was Dave Chappelle. And then I was out like 40 quid in a bottle of champagne. But it was amazing. Like, it was so surreal.
So actually to see him in live in person. So how long a set did he do? And can you remember? Because usually it's hard to remember. You can laugh away a comedian, and then when somebody asks you about it, you've totally forgot what he actually said. But were you buckled? Were you laughing? Can you remember what kind of jokes and what kind of stuff he was talking about?
It is always hard to remember, and then added on to the fact too that I was steaming made it a bit harder. But I do remember he at the start he was just essentially talking, like there was no like bravado or like it was just literally speaking to the crowd, and then he did material, and then by the very end he was doing essentially a Q&A. So I obviously asked a question. I was like, I can't miss out on this opportunity, and raised my hand, and I just said, Dave, I'm a comic from Ireland. And he interrupts and he goes, from Ireland? And then I was like, yeah. And he goes, he's like, quit now? What are you doing in Ireland? So I was laughing at that. And then I was just like, what advice would you have? And he just said, just to always kind of stay in it. And as long as you don't lose the love aspect for it, then you'll be fine. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Kind of stay in your lane and just focus on getting better. And I was like, it's amazing to hear. So then afterwards, my friend Brian, who actually works at Chateau Marmont, which is literally across from the Comedy Store, he texted me being like, heads up, Dave Chappelle is staying in Chateau Marmont tonight. So they wouldn't let you inside, but I waited outside Chateau Marmont, and me and my friend just sat there like talking to each other. Mm-hmm. And then he was like, here, man, I got to get up for work in the morning. I might bail here. And I was like, right, I'll give it another hour. And if he doesn't come in the hour, then I'm done. And an hour passed, and I went, right, at this point, I look like a One Direction fangirl. I was like, I'm going to go home now, keep my pride. And I walked down to the Uber is saying it'll pick me up at the Comedy Store. So I walked down to the Comedy Store, and I literally am putting in the R in drive for my friend's address, and I stick it in, and literally at that moment I just see this big massive car coming out of the Comedy Store, and sure enough it's Chappelle. And I literally I didn't know what to do. I was like, well, he's about to drive off, and then I was just like in this moment in my own head of like, if you don't say anything now, he's gone, and that's it. So I was just like, Dave! And like he was probably terrified, because if you hear someone shouting your name in this accent, it's terrifying. So he totally ignored it. He totally ignored it. And then I was like, Dave, I'm the Irish comic. And he immediately turned his head and he stopped his car. And then I just was like, well, did I just go up to him or what? And so I walked up to him and he was like talking to me for a bit. And then he was like, do you want a picture? And then took my phone and took a selfie. And I was just like, this is unbelievable. So then he just drove off.
Amazing.
Crazy.
That is amazing. No, because I wasn't really aware of him too much, to be honest, until recently when I watched these, the kind of latest Netflix show. And honestly, he's so funny. And some of the stuff he comes away with, it's the way he kind of builds things up. The style of comedy was what I really like. And he does touch on, kind of, dodgy subjects, shall we say.
Yeah. But he's funny enough to talk about those dodgy subjects. That's the thing.
Yeah, and it's a good way the spin he puts on it. But have you seen his latest show? I think he's done one whilst in lockdown. It was
on
YouTube.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
846. I did see it. Yeah, it focused primarily on kind of the murdering of George Floyd, and he was essentially talking about how everyone had been asking for his take and why he was staying silent. And he basically recorded this. It's weird to call it a comedy special because it's sort of like a man just talking out his thoughts and feelings towards a tragic event that's literally changed the world, but with punchlines thrown in there. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, when he's talking about it and stuff, like, you do get the feeling you're like, this guy is he's definitely more than a comedian in terms of like people really take his opinion seriously, and he's able to dismantle big crazy subjects and world events and kind of make them digestible for everyone to look at and be like, all right, okay, I didn't see it from that angle, or
Mm-hmm. No, he's kind of one of my favourite comedians, and that's only been about the last year or two, to be honest. I wasn't really aware of him beforehand, but I mean, there's just so many kind of comedians out there to look and listen to. Tell us about you also featured on Kill Tony over there in LA when you were over there.
Yeah,
what was that experience like?
Very surreal. Because I was a fan of the show for so long. So I used to work at the Irish News whenever I was in uni, and I would literally sit. This was like on my placement year, and I would sit at my cubicle, and I would put in my headphones and just listen to Kill Tony as I was doing sort of monotonous, pretending to work essentially. And I've never been good at any job I've had, is something to take away. And I remember just listening to the show and thinking, what would I be like if I did a minute? Because essentially the show it's a guest panel of 3 comedians, and they're judging up and coming open mic comics who do 1 minute of material. And at the very end, they critique your set, they review your set, and sometimes they roast your set. And I was hugely fortunate to get in the show 5 times. And then after the 5th time, Tony invited me to be a special guest when they came to Dublin on tour. So that was amazing as well. And yeah, Hinchcliffe is another one too. I've just been very lucky that there's been people out there in the industry that have, for whatever reason, sort of helped me out and taken me under their wing a bit, especially in LA, where it was like, I knew nobody. You're coming from a different country. You've kind of got a bit of culture shock coming at you from all angles, and you're just sort of trying to get used to just being in the environment. And then the comedy scene's a whole different thing to kind of navigate through. But I think having him there made everything a lot easier, and the help he gave me was crazy. I learned so much from him alone.
Mm-hmm. So when they came over to Dublin, and you were basically a guest on the show, so I take it you were critiquing kind of up and coming comedians as well. So kind of same format.
No, so they had me as like a guest doing like a minute spot. So I did the spot and then got to talk to them after for a while. But yeah, there was tons of people in Dublin that night that had signed up and had like went up. So it was good to like showcase some of stuff over here as well to them.
And do you still keep in contact with the likes of them?
Yeah, the odd time, yeah. Just like different things of Instagram and stuff like that. So it's good to have them lads there. Like,
it's amazing how kind of social media has changed the dynamics of the world. You know, everyone's, you know, we're all pretty much connected now. I've got family in the Philippines and you know, in Australia, and it's amazing you can still keep in contact with folk. And you know, it's a global market we now live in, I would say.
There's definitely pros and cons. Like, I think there's a lot of bad stuff about social media for sure, but at the same time, I think that, as you say, it has kind of created this like interconnectivity between everybody, and it's kind of making, especially if you're in entertainment, you know, there's no reason, like if you're a comedian with Wi-Fi, then there's no reason why you shouldn't be putting out some sort of content, whether that's a video, a podcast, anything at all, you know, to put out there for people to take in. And, you know, I think gone are the days of having to wait for someone to, you know, like an agent or something to take an interest in you and stuff like that. You can do it yourself.
Yeah, it's pretty much what I'm kind of doing here.
Yeah, it's great, man.
You know, it's the world's your oyster, really. And obviously, I would say a comedian that's done really well, but that I would say is your good friend Colin Geddes. Like, obviously, I follow him. I watch his, you know, his general banter podcast and his, you know, his other character he plays with the bandana.
Barry the Blender.
Barry the Blender, aye. And you know, and he does his podcast, and you know, sometimes he's got yourself on there as a special guest, or his wife. You know, he's got quite a good, you know, he's got a massive following, to be fair, and he's done really well. He's sold out the SSE over there. Tell us about the scene over in Northern Ireland, Belfast, because it seems to be doing quite well just now.
Well, again, Colin, yeah, you're absolutely right. No kind of like he didn't wait around for anybody to give him anything. He from the get-go has made his own stuff, put it out on his own platform. Nobody's you know, like a middleman with what he's doing, and it's resulted in him selling out an arena 2 nights already, and that's just the start of it, I think, for him, you know. But it's crazy to watch the growth of a lot of comedians out here that just so happen to be also friends of yours. And I think that watching the scene itself grow is fantastic. And everyone's got their own plan. Everyone's doing their own route. Like for me personally, I just think that London is a good decision for me right now. And I also want to go somewhere where just I can almost like feel in the dark for a bit, because I just don't think that I'm at a level where I want to be yet. So I'm constantly trying to get better at what I'm doing. So I think moving to somewhere where, you know, you can't rely on certain jokes and stuff. Like even there in Glasgow, I'm sure Glasgow comedians that you've seen, they've maybe used a couple of local references or things like that, or maybe Scottish slang or patter. And it's kind of trying to be universally funny as well as the thing that I'm trying to work on. So I think time over there will do the same amount of good as it did in LA.
Mm-hmm. Being a kind of multicultural city.
Yeah,
I get where you're coming from. It'll kind of put you out your comfort zone.
Absolutely.
So it's all about development as you kind of, you know, as you go along this journey. So, put you out your kind of comfort zone and then just see what you can produce.
But and also for the food too, you know, that's a big thing. Like I'm sick of meat and spuds, so I'm looking forward to, you know, getting decent food again.
You must be fed up with the super noodles and all, to be fair. But see, to be fair, that recipe I gave you, that'll jazz that.
Honestly,
right
man,
up,
I'm gonna try it out, and I'll be giving you the feedback from it.
Please do. That'd be amazing. But I would recommend it, definitely. Not just to you, anyone. That's what to do. Add some spring onions and some egg as well. No, but we've known each other for what? That's coming up 10 years, maybe.
Is it?
First met. I think it might be. Tea in the Park, that's when we first met, and we were just literally camping next to each other, you and your good friend, his name escapes me. Andy Hetherington, yes.
Yeah.
Andy boy, you still keep in contact with Andy?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Is he still mad?
He actually isn't. He actually got it all out of his system when he was 17, which is the prime age to have a real bender, so to speak, that comes like 17th birthday. It still was like Amy Winehouse, he was just absolutely mad. So it's good now to see him calm down a wee bit.
No, it's obviously Tea in the Park's no longer over here, and it's kind of been replaced by Transmit. It's more of a kind of a city festival now, but those were great times, great memories. Some laugh. My recollection of it. They had the Sunset Strip, if you remember, and they had the Arcadia Afterburner, and it was just, and the weather was great. I can remember the weather being great. I think the only negative thing was kind of maybe the other folk that were camping next to us.
Yeah.
Stole our drink.
I talked about this in a podcast just last week.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, because we were talking about the Voice No Confessional topic was festival stories, and people were sending me in their kind of stories, and one of the people was saying about they got their alcohol stolen at the music festival, and I was like, I had the same thing happen with my friends at Tea in the Park, which puts a bit of a dampener, but you guys stayed in good spirits.
We just had to buy more, but that was the only kind of negative thing about that weekend. But no, it's not quite the same. We no Tea in the Park here over in Scotland. Kind of music festival wise, what have you got in Northern Ireland, or even in the south as well?
I mean, that's a great question. I know we have a thing, Bell Sonic, but it's not really like a music festival. It's more like kind of you have your Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There'll be like different acts on, but it won't be like camping or anything like that. We have Longitude as well down south, but again, I don't know if it's camping or not. I can't even remember. But I'm planning on doing next year when this is all over. I was planning to do it this year, but obviously with the pandemic, I want to go for the crack to film a video at Coachella. So
I was just going to ask you that. Did you? I take it you never get the chance to go there when you were over.
Never got the chance. I plan to go this year though, but I think the tickets are going to be hard to get just because of the fact that if you go to any music festival after all this, it's going to be the best weekend of your life. Do you know what I mean?
It's going to be off the scale. Mm-hmm.
Off the scale. So I'm trying to get tickets for Coachella and then also record a video whilst I'm out there to promote my own show. So we'll see what happens. Like,
that'd be amazing. Am I right in saying that's over 2 weekends? That festival is kind of almost like the same lineup again the following week.
Yeah, they have a weekend 1 and a weekend 2. So it's kind of like all the artists are there for the week in Coachella Valley, and they do weekend 1 and then the same artists weekend 2 with surprises as well, which is great.
Mm-hmm. I think, did Beyonce not perform there recently? I think
she did.
She had a big, some kind of a massive stage. But no, it's one for the bucket list, definitely. But so it's Tomorrowland. I still like a bit of dance music. Obviously, we are on a radio station, Edge Radio, and we're kind of target audience, if you like, is 15 to 35-year-olds. So it's kind of recent chat. What kind of music you listen to at the moment, man?
I mean, I've always kind of been. I listen to a little bit of everything, but I've always kind of been streamlined with hip hop, to be honest. So, I listen to like Tyler the Creator, Earth Sweatshirt, Frank Ocean, Childish Gambino, and then I like old hip hop as well, like NWA, Public Enemy, Outkast. Listen to it all, kind of.
So hip hop, that kind of genre might seem strange for a guy like yourself in Northern Ireland. What kind of got you into it?
I honestly can't even remember. I think just like whenever you're like a teenager and you're like all my friends were into rave music, still are, or like trance and stuff like that. And I remember like almost being like I'd be forcing myself to have this as my thing. This just doesn't really suit me, I don't think, or it doesn't correlate with what I'm into. And then I think the first hip hop album I properly got into was, it might have been Outkast, you know, Stankonia. And from there, just kind of was just like, oh yeah, this is my avenue. This is what I like. I like everything about it.
Outcast, Hey Ya's my kind of go-to tune at the end of the night when I'm DJing. So,
What's
shake
that?
it like a Polaroid picture. That's
Oh, Hey Ya.
yeah. That's my go-to tune. That's a kind of end of the night tune. You know, it usually gets them all up dancing and that. But you were talking about DJ, you know, kind of that rave scene, which is that still kind of happening over in Northern Ireland.
Big
Jamie
time.
B, is that Jamie B? He's quite big over there, is he not?
I wouldn't be too familiar myself, but I've been to a couple, you know, again, nights out with friends. They still love going to like those events. I know we have a big like festival called Ava, and it's on every year, and people go mad for it. So yeah, it's again, I'm just one of the guys who'll go for the crack, but I don't know anything about the music really.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, you mentioned Tyler, the Creator. Again, is that's a kind of musician, or in that genre, the rap R&B, that you've actually met as well, and you've had a bit of a relationship with him, have you not?
Yeah, he's been essentially a blueprint for me and a real role model / idol. And I was lucky enough to just kind of again take a chance and write a DM and ask if he would come to see me do an open mic when I was in LA. This was the first time I went. It was actually on a holiday, and I took out a loan from the bank. I took out an overdraft on my student loan and just kind of flew over and kind of just threw caution to the wind. Had no inclination that he would show up, anything like that. But I went the Monday after his own music festival that he has in LA every year. And sure enough, he showed up. And then afterwards got chatting to him. Gentleman, like really nice guy. And even just recently, last year, I actually met him at his shop in Los Angeles. Me and my brother, actually. And just such a nice guy, asking how things are, and it's just crazy to me to have any sort of the relationship, if you will, with a guy like that you look up to so much. So again, just very fortunate.
Mm-hmm. So what is it about him that you kind of you look up to? How did he make himself in the music business? How did he do so well?
Just again, kind of ground up and putting his stuff out and not getting much support from major record labels, and kind of believing in what he was putting out and his own product. And then eventually now it's just like, the guy's worked with every major artist you can think of, won a Grammy last year for his latest album, and he just hasn't stopped, essentially. It feels like it's easy, I think, in hip hop to have a big single or even an album and kind of be the thing, the hot current thing for 2 years, and then these same guys have a big dip period where they just kind of die off. But he's been relevant to a T for 7 years now. He just hasn't. His fan base continues to grow. He gets more success, more accolades, and it's all from someone who was totally completely grassroots, just believed in his own thing.
I think just what you've said in this conversation we've had, and obviously over in Scotland we've got Jerry Cinnamon, and he's done it all by himself. And it wasn't overnight success; it was hard graft. Would you say that's kind of how the way the world is now? It's if you want something, you just need to get out there and get it. You don't need to wait around for anyone.
Well, I mean, I think the thing is pick what you want to do, and then actually say to yourself and even write down what you'd like to achieve out of that field. But don't beat yourself up if you don't, or if you come short of anything, because even the journey of trying to do that will be a great existence. So like for me, there's still a lot of things that I want to do. There's still so many things that I want to achieve, and you know. But at the same time, if nothing happened from now till, you know, whenever I'm way older, if nothing happened and I achieved nothing more, I'd still be able to go, I enjoyed my life, like pursuing this thing that I love doing. And that's the main thing as well, is like, you can't really ever, you know, like, I've never did it for money or anything like that. Like, you know, you're trying to make a living off it, obviously, but you do it kind of out of the love for it, you know. Like, I watch stand up all the time. I love writing. I love performing. And I think if you keep the love aspect for whatever it is you're doing, then you can't really lose in an essence.
Brilliant. So I think we're nearing the end here, Aaron. So absolute pleasure talking to you. If anyone that's tuned in is wanting to follow you on any of your socials, how will they find you? Is it just simply Aaron McCann, or how will they find you?
Instagram, McCann Comedy. And if you're an older person, Facebook, Aaron McCann Comedy.
How old are you, Aaron, again?
25.
Oofed. I'm not old enough to be your dad, but I could have been. I turned 39 just a few weeks ago, but
oh yeah, where I'm from, you definitely could have been.
No, see, I was going to ask you that because I was speaking to my stepdaughter. She's 16, so you know about social media and that. So Facebook is Facebook for the older person. Is Instagram more for the kind of the younger generation?
Yeah, it's hilarious because I find that out of all the apps on my phone, all these time-sucking, useless apps that I have on my phone, I feel like the one that gets the most attention, it would probably go Instagram, Twitter, then Facebook. Like, I just never use it. Every time I go on it, it's like one of my sisters asking where the best shop that sells rhubarb and custard sweets is, or something like that you could just Google. So I just kind of stay away from Facebook. I'm like, all right, we'll let you have that.
Facebook's more for the you know, it's for everybody. Twitter and Instagram more for like businesses or, you know, folk in the entertainment industry. Would you say that's kind of more for
that? Instagram is for comparing yourself to other people who don't actually live real lives. And then Twitter is for just dumping your conscious thoughts without thinking about it. That's what I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so Twitter, you on that quite a lot?
I love Twitter. That's where I get my news from.
Your news?
Yeah, I don't actively seek out news because it's just going to depress me. So I just sit in Twitter and like let it come to me.
Mm-hmm. And just to finish off then, Aaron, so if there's any advice you could give, you've obviously been giving quite a lot of advice. You've met some fantastic people along the way from comedy to music. What advice, if there was one thing you would advise somebody if they want to get into comedy, what would you say?
Oh, wow. I don't think I'm in a position to give advice, but if I was to, what I would say is some people ask like about starting it, or like they're thinking about starting it, and I would always say to that, just start. Like, literally just start, because it doesn't matter when you do your first open mic, because you're not going to remember it in years to come. Do you know what I mean? So I would just say, just start, and you'll get a feel. You'll know if you like it or not, and if you really like it, then it's a wonderful thing to get involved in. You'll create some great memories, meet some very fascinating people. It's great.
Do you remember your first gig, or is that a distant memory now?
I do. I don't remember the material, but I know the material was bad, and I know I got pity laughs, and I know that I was booked to do 7 minutes, and I did 22.
And how did you prep for it? Did you have that? Oh, you know, I take it wasn't just off the cuff. You did prepare, and you the jokes written out, and you were trying to memorise them. How did you go about it, just to finish off?
Oh, dude, it was the most I've ever prepared for a gig in my life. I mean, I wrote it out like I was studying for a part in a play. Like, I wrote out every single word that was going to come out of my mouth, and just kind of like essentially it was like I was reading a script at the actual gig because I'd memorized it that much. But yeah, like again, first gig is pretty much it's like kind of it's almost like whenever you do your GCSEs, and at the time it's like, right, this is the most important thing in your life. If you mess this up, you're done. And then you do your GCSEs, and then the A levels takes over that, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, now your A levels is done. It's to uni, and then you get your degree, and you realize it's pointless, and you're like, why did I pay $9,000 for a load of slideshows? So it doesn't matter. Just do it. Figure out if you like it, and if you like it, stick with it.
Smashing, good advice, Aaron. Because you've been doing it for a few years now, so no, that's brilliant advice for them that's tuning in. That's maybe fancies it. But you can listen to Aaron's latest podcast. It's on all the usual streaming services: Spotify, Apple Music, I'd imagine, and it's called Stop the World. So he's got his 2 previous on there as well. Kick things off with Dutch Civil and Another Love Island. So go check them out. You won't be disappointed. But Aaron McCann from Omagh, Northern Ireland. Been a pleasure talking to you.
You too, mate. Thanks for having me.
Hopefully speak to you again soon. All right, mate?
Yeah, man.
Take care. Cheers.